The playoffs are inching closer and closer. Each start and sit decision you make continually gets more important by the week. So we're going to break down 16 different players today on whether you should start them or sit them in your week 11 matchups. We'll start with the quarterback position, work our way all the way through the tight ends, give you a start and sit at each position. So Cameron, who is your quarterback start this week?
It's Bo Nix, and I feel like we've been a fairly anti-Bo Nix podcast to start the season.
Me especially.
But I do want to say, I think that's all Sean Payton's fault, because he started that right after the draft saying, I tricked them into taking McCarthy, so I got Bo Nix as a Vikings heavy paw. So I don't think it's his fault. But Bo Nix is the quarterback 6 since week 5, averaging 20.4 fantasy points per game. For reference, that's only 0.3 points per game less than Josh Allen during that same stretch. Last week, he played Kansas City. He was a guy that me and Ty said, hey, we'd stay away from. He only had 16 fantasy points, but still put up 22 completions on 30 pass attempts for 215 yards and 2 touchdowns and almost won them the game. He's playing really well right now, and he's got a pretty sneaky rushing upside, I got to say. 6 of 10 games so far this season with 6+ fantasy points from rushing. He's a guy that kind of is doing it all over. And now he's playing Atlanta, who is allowing the 7th most points to fantasy quarterbacks, including 21 plus in 5 of their last 6 weeks. Now, they did play Baker Mayfield twice in that stretch, who's been on an absolute heater. Like I said, Nix has. Mayfield's been on a different level. Yeah. But at the same time, great matchup, been playing well. I would stick rolling with Nix in this one.
I mean, Bo Nix is just the difference between week 1 Bo Nix, where it was just like throw out the season for Bo Nix already. Yes. Like, it was abysmal to watch in week 1, to now what you're getting is you're getting a guy who can actually hit his players over the middle of the field. We're going to talk about another one of his players later in this episode where, like, he's starting to hit the deep ball now as well, which is huge for Bo Nix. You're getting these explosive plays out of this offense now. The only thing that needs to come is a run game, which they still can't figure out. Yeah. But Bo Nix has been getting it done recently. I'm a big fan of the improvements that he's been making. You can tell it's progressing week over week. But, man, I will say I'm happy to be wrong on this one, because it was looking, oh, my God, I was ready to victory lap myself too early. And that's why you don't take early victory laps, my friend.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, you look at his wide receivers.
Oh, I know.
His wide receivers are it's a gross group. It's Sutton, and then it's Vele, Little Jordan Humphrey, Troy Franklin, and Marvin Mims. Like, it is nothing special, and he's just been producing week after week. So, yeah, you got to tip your cap to the guy.
Yeah, he's been getting it done, just like when Russell Wilson has taken over now, who is my quarterback start of the week. He's been getting it done for the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. I mean, quarterbacks have been money against the Baltimore Ravens this year. Every quarterback has scored at least 18.5 fantasy points against the Baltimore Ravens over their last 6 games. 5 of the last 6 have actually scored 20 plus fantasy points. And Wilson himself, again, surprisingly been good for the Steelers offense. He actually plays relatively well into the skill set of the wide receivers in this offense, right? He's not afraid to launch this moon ball and let Pickens go make a play for him. 3 of his 6 touchdowns since he's taken over in his 3 starts have actually gone for 20 plus yards this year. That's led to 2 games being a top 10 quarterback for Russell Wilson this year as well. So, I mean, you're seeing on the screen right now, that moonball to Mike Williams was like quite literally a quick 1-2 read, and he just heaves that sucker downfield and drops it on a dime to Mike. So Russ has been playing extremely well. I love him in a matchup against Baltimore here. This should be a money matchup, even though we typically see AFC North matchups, ground and pound in the trenches, not against the Baltimore Ravens this year. You can dice them out through the air.
Yeah, it's been really impressive, just the Russ we're seeing this year compared to what we saw the last 2 years from Russ. And it's kind of funny, because what we saw from Russ was one of the reasons we were kind of out on Bo Nix.
Yes.
And then because of but we were also out on Russ at the same time. And now it's kind of like they're both doing well in their different situations. So that's very interesting. But like you said, that connection he's got with George Pickens has been awesome. Pickens is the wide receiver 8 in points per game since Russ took over. So they're both playing well. And the only way you can compete with this Baltimore team is to throw on them. You can't run on them at all. And, Cincinnati, obviously they're not Cincinnati. They're not Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, but they did show, hey, you can throw all over this team. You got to think Pittsburgh looks to do that in this one.
I'll just say if Bo Nix can get 18.7 fantasy points against the Ravens, I have full confidence that Russell Wilson can get at least 18.7 fantasy points as well. Let's breeze through quarterback sits again. This is always such a sticky one because a lot of these guys, it's mostly like in your standard 12-man leagues, you're like, I'm considering streaming him. He wasn't even in my like arsenal of options here, but let's breeze through quarterback sits here, Cameron. Who aren't you looking to start this week?
Yeah, I'm out on Geno Smith this week. He's been playing all right before the bye. He had 25 fantasy points against the Rams, gave JSN a big week, but he's playing San Francisco. And in his 4 games against San Francisco, he's averaging 231 passing yards, half a touchdown and 1 interception. Right? He's got 2 touchdowns in his career versus 4 interceptions against them. I'm just not trusting. I don't have confidence in him this week, and since he is that borderline top 12 guy every single week, in a matchup he's not historically good in, I just stay away.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid Kirk Cousins this week. Fresh off of a 10.8 stinker against the New Orleans Saints, who should have been an exploitable match for Kirk Cousins, but I don't necessarily have any confidence with him going against the Broncos now, who haven't allowed a quarterback to score more than 13.7 points against them at home this year. So tough secondary, tough matchup here for Kirk. I'm not looking to start him this week. I get it in a 2 quarterback league. You might have to start these 2 guys, but in your single quarterback leagues, these are not guys I would be looking to stream this week. I would look towards a Bo Nix or a Russell Wilson over both of these quarterbacks this week.
Definitely.
Before we move on to the running back position, though, got to give people a quick reminder. We actually go live before every Sunday of action. And we answer all of your start sit questions. I don't know if a lot of people actually know that. We just crossed the 2,000 subscriber threshold on the channel. So thanks to those of you who have supported us. I'm not actually sure how many of those 2,000 actually know we go live before games on Sunday. So if you want to come hang out with us, get your start sit questions answered, make sure you're subscribed and turn on that notification bell so you know not only when we go live on Sunday, but when our newest episodes are up as well. So you can get all the fantasy football advice you need to dominate your leagues down the stretch here. So again, we're grateful for the 2,000 of you who have already jumped on board. Come join us on Sundays. And if you aren't on board yet and you have been consuming our content, now is a great time to join the fellowship as well. Let's move on to running back starts here, Cameron. Who's your running back start of the week?
This was the guy you might have hinted at earlier when you said we're kind of reusing him. It's David Montgomery. he's one of our favorite players to talk about, and it's just because his role in this Lions offense is not going away, no matter the game script. He is the ground and pound. He is the thunder and lightning, and he scores touchdowns. And he plays Jacksonville this week. We actually put out a short form video saying like he's the guy to go buy, and that buy window closes this week because Jacksonville has no Trevor Lawrence. They have Mac Jones. And if you watched them with Mac Jones last week against the Vikings offense had 3 turnovers, and yet Jacksonville still only had 1 touchdown. They only had 8 first downs all game. If you do that against Detroit, they're going to put up 50 against you. Yeah. It's not even going to be close. And Jacksonville can't stop the run. And so they're allowing the 5th most fantasy points to running backs. Got to think that continues this week. I would be shocked if we don't see at least 15 carries from Monty and probably 5 of them in the red zone with a rushing touchdown. So I'm predicting big things from Monty and this Lions offense as a whole. And, this is just such an exploitable matchup right now.
And this is one where I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, we're worried about Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has been getting more of the work recently. This is a matchup where I wouldn't be surprised if they're both top 20 backs at the end of the week. Like, I don't think you have to worry about Monty being like the running back 32. And you're like, he was a flex play this week, but he hasn't given anything less than double-digit fantasy points this year. So I would not be worried about Monty in the least. And I think you're right. This is just a smash matchup here. And if you want to go out and acquire him, the window is closing after this week against Jacksonville because I think he and Monty can both give you, or he and Jahmyr Gibbs, can both give you, 15 plus this week.
Definitely.
My running back start of the week, I'm going to dig a little bit further down. Hasn't been sunshine and roses for my guy here, but my start of the week is Nick Chubb. And I use his full name because this man has, when I've attempted to disrespect Nick Chubb and say he's not worth it, I get torched every time. So I'm going to put some respect on his name when I say he's my start of the week here. I mentioned ever since coming back from his injury here, it hasn't been a great start to the season. He's averaging only 2.7 yards per carry. He's been the running back 43 and 47 the last 2 weeks. I will say the film looks good. It's not great, but the film looks good. I think his struggles are more indicative of tough matchups and offensive line play over the last few weeks. But the Saints matchup here this week is just so exploitable. We've seen Javonte Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and Bijan Robinson all scored double-digit touchdowns against them over the last 4 weeks, and 7 different running backs have scored at least 18 and a half fantasy points against the Saints since week 3. I mean, if this is a game for Nick Chubb to get right in his first good game back off of an injury, I think it's got to be this week, fresh out of the bye. I'm okay having confidence in Nick Chubb this week, and if you're like still a little bit on edge, like you could slot him in your flex spot. But I think he does have running back 2 upside this week with how many teams are on bye and just how thin it is getting at the position.
Yeah, I talked about this when I was talking about Cedric Tillman as a sell yesterday on our buy low, sell high. And it's because, Chubb has had 11, 15, and 16 carries in these last 3 games. But the Browns have been throwing at a ridiculous rate. They've had, in those 3 games, they've had 52, 41, and 46 pass attempts. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's sustainable. Yeah. I understand Jameis is a guy that is willing to just sit back there and chuck it. But if you want to win any games, that's not how they're going to do it. In this Saints matchup, I think they try and get back to what they do well or have done well in the past. They have, obviously haven't done great this year, but what Kevin Stefanski kind of built this Browns team on when he first came in was the run. And I think they try to get back to that in this one. And like you said, it's been rough sledding. It's Baltimore and the Chargers. This is finally a matchup you're looking forward to for Chubb against the Saints.
Yeah, and maybe it's still a little bit more of a pass-heavy attack, but I expect them to be much more balanced than 45-plus pass attempts like it's been with Jameis Winston under center here. So, yeah, I've got confidence in Nick Chubb this week. I think you can slot him into your lineup, and at worst, I think he's a flex play this week.
Yep.
Running back sits of the week, guys, we have less confidence in, though. Who's your guy, Cameron?
I'm going with Chase Brown here, and he put up 22 fantasy points last week. He's put up 20 in the back-to-back weeks. But the issue for me is last week he was all receiving. We've seen him be decently involved in the receiving game, but last week he had 11 targets and 9 receptions. I don't think that continues again this week against the Chargers. The Chargers are also only allowing the 4th lowest amount of fantasy points to running backs on the season, and have only given up 20 total points one time this year.
Yeah.
So I understand Cincinnati's look good. He should find, some red zone touches. The Chargers defense has been legit under Jim Harbaugh. He came in and said, we're going to play good defense and run the ball. And that's exactly what they've done so far this year. I just worry that, the efficiency is not quite there. And then he doesn't see quite the same receiving work. We saw him keeping it afloat last week. And then I think there is a wild card of Khalil Herbert. Last week was his first week coming in. It was a short week. Obviously you're not going to see a ton of him. So it'll be interesting to see, is he involved at all? Because I just don't think Chase Brown's the guy who can continuously take 90% of snaps week after week for the rest of the year.
What's crazy about the Chargers defense is they've only given up 2 total touchdowns to running backs in general this year. They've only given up 1 rushing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
And not that Chase Brown's fantasy points have come on the back of touchdowns. Like, he's been an efficient back, right? I mean, we saw him the other week, 157 total yards against the Raiders. You'll take that every day of the week. But I think in this matchup specifically, you're going to be hoping for Chase Brown to find the end zone to give you that necessary injection to his fantasy points. But I just don't think you're going to come across it because it was not even Kareem Hunt. It was Samaje Perine who found the end zone for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the only other receiving touchdown came to Alexander Madison. And those are like 2 of the most unlikely people to probably score a touchdown.
No joke.
This year. So if you're thinking Chase Brown scores, I have bad news. I'm not on that ship with you. I'll let you drown on that ship by yourself. But I don't hate it. I think Chase Brown is a fine sit this week, even though some managers might be back into a corner into playing him as well.
For sure. I mean, we're at the point of the year where if you got to play him, you got to play him, right? Like, I'm not saying sit him and go out and start like Tyler Algier or something.
Yeah, right.
You sit him if you have another option to sit.
You're going to go out and play Samaje Perine this week instead. Even though, I mean, he's been garnering a few PPR points, but nothing to be fantasy relevant. My guy's very similar, though. Like, if you got to play Tony Pollard this week, you just got to play Tony Pollard. He has been running pure this year. He's only given you 2 finishes outside of the top 24 running backs this year, But this matchup this week, I'm not looking forward to the matchup with the Vikings, who they've just been stifling to opposing running backs this year. The fourth fewest fantasy points per game allowed to the position, the third fewest rushing yards allowed. They've also allowed the lowest EPA per play and the lowest EPA per rush, which essentially means EPA is expected points added if you're not familiar with what EPA is. But essentially, it's the chances of your team scoring against that defense on a per play basis and on a per rush basis. So the Vikings have been stingy against running backs this year, bottom line. And this is a game too. Tyler and I were talking about this yesterday when we were talking about Calvin Ridley's schedule down the stretch. This is the one matchup where I am terrified of Brian Flores making Will Levis see ghosts, like absolutely just wetting the bed and having a terrible day all around. And if Will Levis can't take advantage of this secondary to even open up opportunities in the run game, I don't have high hopes for Tony Pollard here in an already tough matchup, because that passing game is going to need to get clicking if they want any holes open up in the run game.
Yeah, not to say that the Jacksonville run game is the Titans run game, because Titans have had a better run game this season. But last week was Blake Cashman's first game back in a while for the Vikings, their middle linebacker, if you're not familiar. And the Vikings held the Jags running backs to 13 carries for 48 yards and 1 catch for -1 yard. And that was it on the entire day for their running backs. So I agree. I wouldn't trust them against this defense right now. They're starting to play well, and they've shown, hey, if you don't have good quarterback play, we're gonna beat up on you, and we're gonna just continue to beat up on you time after time. And like you said, if there's anyone you could beat up on right now, it's Will Levis.
Can we take an over/under on Brian Flores' blitz percentage in this game this week?
It's gonna be like 85%. He's gonna break an NFL record.
I was gonna say they're blitzing 37% this season. I told Ty yesterday, I'm like, if that number's at 65 in this game, I would not be surprised.
Pushing 50 for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break here, Cameron. We've gotten through quarterbacks and running backs. We'll be back with the pass catchers afterwards. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. We've covered running back and quarterback starts and sits of the week. Let's move on to the wide receivers and tight ends now. Cameron, who is your wide receiver start of the week?
I'm going to go with LADD McConkey. I don't know if you've seen, what's his name? Keegan, Michael, whatever. What's
Keaton and Kel?
Yeah, no, from Key and Peele. It's not Jordan Peele. What's the other one? What's from the
Keegan Thompson?
Keegan Thompson. That's who I'm looking for. They asked him to do the names, and he gave LADD McConkey, and this made me laugh. But he's my guy here. He's playing Cincinnati this week, the opposite of Chase Brown. And Cincinnati is allowing the 5th most points to fantasy wide receivers on the season so far. They've been an exploitable matchup. And I get it. Last week for Lab was not great. But before that, he's had 6 or more targets every single game except for 1. In last week, he played against the Titans, who have been a good who have been a good team against the pass so far. And before last week, he had back-to-back weeks with 5+ receptions over 60 yards. Three weeks ago now, he had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not saying he has that again this week, but he's involved in this offense. He's utilizing this offense, and in a plus matchup where Herbert's been looking really good as of late.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anybody has more dropped touchdowns on the season than Justin Herbert. And these aren't just normal drops. No. These are drops where the guy's got 3 steps, hits him in the hands. I mean, there's no excuse. And so Herbert's been playing well. I think McConkey's just going to continue to be used more and more down the stretch. And then obviously in a plus matchup, I just like him in this one.
Yeah, and this isn't one of those matchups that's oh my gosh, it's the Minnesota Vikings, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
Cincinnati's a fine matchup to target, but when Justin Herbert has been playing at the level that he has been, like you've been saying, I mean, it is so difficult to not put Lad McConkey in your lineup because you know he's Herbert's top guy.
Yes.
So I really don't hate this at all. Again, it's not like a matchup that you're like seeking out, but in this case, with how well Herbert's been playing, I mean, you can expect him to keep slinging it around the yard if Cincinnati figures out how to bottle up this run game. My wide receiver, goodness, I almost said quarterback start of the week. My wide receiver start of the week, because it's your quarterback's start of the week's wide receiver, Cortland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. And man, he has been looking great recently. 17 plus fantasy points in each of his last 3 games. He's garnered 9 plus targets in those games. And he's gone for 100 plus yards in 2 out of the 3 as well. We talked about this, right? Like Bo Nix has been hitting him over the middle of the field. He's starting to connect with him on the deep ball. You see that on the film over on YouTube that you're watching as well, which I think, again, a huge testament to Bo Nix's improvement since week 1, now getting Cortland Sutton involved as the clear alpha in this offense. I think this is a game where he can absolutely continue his hot streak here against the Atlanta Falcons. They are 27th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers this year, and 27th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to perimeter wide receivers specifically as well, where Cortland Sutton lines up. So if you're not familiar with schedule adjusted fantasy points, again, it's similar to like when they play a good team, do they do like above average, and then do they just dominate bad teams, right? Like it's a whole metric that takes in a deeper account, a deeper record of the season as well. So at this point in the season, I like to look at schedule adjusted fantasy points only because it probably represents a bigger picture than, you know, like people look at the Buffalo Bills, they're getting torn up on the ground. It's like, well, yeah, they also got chewed up for like 35 plus points by Derrick Henry that one week, which is carrying that leverage a little bit, right? Versus schedule adjusted provides a little bit more of an even playing field. But again, I digest. Great matchup. Cortland Sutton has been on fire. I'm expecting him to keep up that streak this week.
Yeah, he is their guy. Like he is it. We read off the wide receivers earlier. He is the only one of any, you know, I don't want to say significance. That sounds bad, but just like he's the only one you're worried about if you're a defense. And that's been true, you know, so far this season. 9th in targets, 2nd in air yards, 11th in air yard share, 3rd in deep targets, 4th in red zone targets, right? So they're targeting him. They're targeting him downfield. They're targeting him in the red zone, right? He's got high efficiency targets. He had that goose egg 4 weeks ago. And then, like you said, he's just rattled off 3 great games in a row. And there really isn't any sign, you know, that we're seeing that's showing us, hey, it should stop right now. No, it should continue to go to move forward against this Atlanta team. You got to think their offense looks to get back on track a little bit, keep this game, you know, at least offensively entertaining. But now that I'm saying that out loud, I realize it is Atlanta versus Denver in Denver. It's probably going to be a gross game that nobody actually wants to watch.
Right.
But
it won't be in my quad box unless it's one of the only ones in my network.
Well, it'll be a 3 o'clock game if it's in Denver. So you might not have a choice if you want a quad box.
Oh, man.
But yeah, no, I agree 100% though. I'm all for Cortland Sutton in this one. I'd probably going to have him easily as a top 24 option this week.
Let's flip the script here. Let's get a little bit negative here. Wide receiver sits of the week. I can't help but notice the correlation between our wide receiver starts of the week, our quarterbacks who have been playing well as of recent, and both of our wide receiver sits are playing with quarterbacks who have not been playing well this year. I'll let you kick things off here because this might open a bigger can of worms around a certain dialogue that's happening on the Twitterverse right now. But I digress. I'll let you name your wide receiver set here.
Well, yeah, you said quarterbacks weren't playing well this year because you couldn't say recently.
I can't say recently.
Richardson hasn't even been playing recently. Right. So my guy's Michael Pittman. And I'm going to be honest, he was a sit for me before the Anthony Richardson news because they're playing the Jets, who are allowing the least amount of points to fantasy wide receivers on the season. And I get, Sauce Gardner, everyone's saying, he's not Sauce now. He's Ahmad or Med. Is it? I don't even know. I don't even know his real name because I only hear Sauce. But the issue is they're just still locking down wide receivers. Teams are able to run on them. Then now you bring in Anthony Richardson, who just has not been great, right? We just haven't seen the completion percentage we want to see from an NFL quarterback. But even without Richardson, Pittman just hasn't looked right all year. That back injury has been bothering him for a while. I put him on here. They're like, hey, he should be rested up for week 11. But let's be honest, there's definitely a chance that he's not even back again this week because of just how much it's been bothering him. And over his last 4 games, he's the wide receiver 56 in points per game. He's had 8 receptions and 128 yards in those 4 games. That means he's averaging 2 catches for 30 yards a game right now. That's not something you can have in your lineup, especially when they might only throw the ball 20 times this week. So I just don't want anything to do with Michael Pittman. And, it is unfortunate. It's kind of what I thought was going to happen last year. Then we had the Gardner Minshew show. So yeah, you got to stay away from Pittman until we see something worth starting.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will give you your flowers here in terms of being out on Michael Pittman this year.
I know.
I was a little bit like, you know what? They'll figure it out. He's still probably maybe not the clear alpha, but will get enough volume. And I mean, it's just been piss poor play from Anthony Richardson. Well, okay, I'll be nice around the guy because he just got to start a gig back. It's been a developmental process for Anthony Richardson this year that has involved a lot of accuracy issues. But even with Joe Flacco, right? It's not like Flacco was playing any better. I mean, they went back to Richardson for a reason here. So, yeah.
We don't know the reasoning behind anything right now. They're just doing whatever they want.
Steichen said Flacco would start for the foreseeable future, and the foreseeable future was literally 2 weeks, and now it's Anthony Richardson the rest of the season. So we'll see what that actually means. I do think it's the right choice to go back to Anthony Richardson.
No, I think so too.
I mean, he needs the experience, man. It's so necessary, and knowing they drafted a project to just give up on it after 10 NFL games is just
disgusting.
Ludicrous.
Yeah,
it's ludicrous at best. So I'm glad he's getting his gig back, but that doesn't necessarily mean great things for Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, the likes of that wide receiver. Maybe for Alec Pierce. I mean, for Alec Pierce, it might be
3 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Right, right. Maybe Alec Pierce should be a start of the week, but no, for Michael Pittman especially, he is just not the same dude this year, and that's a problem. So yeah, he should be your set on your bench this week. My wide receiver. Go ahead. Yep.
I was just going to say, you said I was out on him. I had him as my wide receiver 36, and I was still almost 30 spots off. So that's just how bad it's been for Michael Pittman.
Oh, man. That is
gross.
Oh, my gosh. My wide receiver sit of the week is DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. There's a lot of different reasons why you should just avoid DJ Moore at all costs this week. And I know Shane Waldron's out of town now, right? But this is just an experiment I want nothing to do with until something actually goes right for this offense. He doesn't have a single finish inside of the top 40 wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. He's going half speed on his routes. Everyone saw the Cardinals clip where he came off the field in the middle of the play while Caleb is scrambling, trying to make something happen. He literally just gave up on his team. And I can pick on DJ Moore, but there's just so much more wrong with this offense that needs fixing before anything else. And it's not like the Packers are now the greatest matchup for him either to get back on track. 5th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers over their last 5 games, which means they have been very, very good against the position. And they've allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers in general over the last 4 weeks. So I don't have much optimism here for DJ Moore. You can go ahead and keep him on your bench this week.
Yeah, really the only positive thing you can say about DJ Moore right now is that he's been on the field. He runs the most routes out of any,
but he's not coming off of it, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's the only good thing. He's had, he is top 11 in deep targets. He is top 10 in red zone targets, which sounds great. But his ADOT is still only 10 yards.
Yeah.
So they take a shot every once in a while, but they've just been using him around the line of scrimmage. So he's losing that kind of, big play ability, that efficiency that we saw last season from him. Hopefully that changes a little bit. But like you said, at this point in the season, I don't want to put a guy in my lineup just based on hope that it's going to get better with the same head coach in town. I understand the offensive coordinator is gone, but it's still the same head coach. And I don't remember who it was talking. I don't even remember where I saw it, but they made a good point. Like, you can change the plays you call, but all the systems you have, as of right now, all that has to change, right? You can change the order of the plays, but everything you have, because you can't just give everyone new terminology in 1 week to learn. So all that has to stay the same. So I wouldn't expect a huge boom from this team. And I don't think that Shane Waldron was the biggest problem. I think it's Matt Eberflus, and he's still in town. So it's just, I just don't want anything to do with it until we see some light from this team.
Yeah, I think you're going to see obviously a lot of organizational shift this off season. what I think you're going to see in the near future now with Thomas Bryan as the offensive coordinator now. Whether you want to see it or not, I think you're going to get a heavy dose of DeAndre Swift, because that's how you're going to try and get things right on this offense is, well, Caleb's not getting it done. We don't want to put the ball in his hands. So we're going to go ahead and consolidate. We're just going to hand the ball off to Swift, hope it opens up, some holes in the perimeter and across the middle for us. But that doesn't mean good things for DJ Moore. It's less volume his direction potentially. And I do want to step back and talk about the Chicago Bears wide receivers as a whole, because Ty and I brought it up on the rest of season schedules episode, how they have a great schedule rest of season. He brought Rome Odunze up as a buy low yesterday. And I seen some people in the comments kind of mention, like, if you're buying any Bears right now, you're tossing in the towel. The only reason why you're investing in a Rome Odunze is right now is because you can get him for 50 cents on the potential dollar. Right. Like, you can get Rome Odunze for a bag of chips right now, probably. Like, he's a borderline cut candidate. And the only reason why people are holding on to him is because of the rookie upside. Like, what if he does put it together here in the back half of the season, which is perfectly fine. I'm willing to buy in on that. If it's going to cost me a Michael Pittman Jr. or a, Alec Pierce, I don't know what it would actually cost. I haven't put much thought into it.
Not much, though.
But no, it's not much, right? So it's not to say that the Bears are going to get better. I don't think you or I are sitting here and saying that, but DJ Moore, it costs too much, because people know if they do turn things around, he's the alpha. It's not Keenan Allen, because even though he's getting the volume, he's not doing anything with it. And it's Rome Odunze, who just probably has the most raw potential out of these three wide receivers. So you're benching all of them this week. But do you want to just clean that up a little bit too, of like rest of season? If you hear any of us saying, like, if you go throw a bag of chips out there to see if you can get them, like, you're not necessarily selling. It's just you're taking a chance on a great schedule down the stretch. It's just that this team has been putrid recently.
Definitely.
Let's close it out here, Cameron. Everybody's favorite game of the week. Which tight end do I blindly throw into my lineup this week for fantasy points? Unfortunately, mine is a little bit less risky than yours, but who's your tight end start of the week?
It's Hunter Henry, and similar to the lad against Cincinnati, this isn't like a smash matchup against the Rams for Hunter Henry. However, it's still a good matchup. The Rams are allowing the 8th most points to fantasy tight ends on the season. And really what this is just chasing volume. We've seen an uptick in targets for him when Drake May came in, 5, 9, 6, 8, 4, right? That's still not otherworldly. I know you hear those numbers, you're like, well, there's a 5 and a 4 in there. But when we're talking about tight ends this year, that for your floor to be 4 targets, unfortunately, that's a good thing. So I'm going to kind of chase the volume. I'm going to chase the fact that the Rams are probably going to put up points, especially after kind of the stinker we saw last week. And I really don't have any other reason why you should be chasing Hunter Henry than hopeful volume that you're coming in on in a plus-ish matchup.
Yeah, it's him and Demario Douglas. I mean, that's your case here for Hunter Henry, right?
Yes.
It's that if Drake May is going to be chucking the ball around the yard, it's going to be him and Demario Douglas that are probably getting 5-6 targets apiece, right? You'll get some Kayshon Boutte mixed in there. Jalen Polk has just kind of become a non-factor at this point. I mean, he got one, his only target for a touchdown last week, but I'm sorry, like, if your only target goes for a touchdown, that doesn't mean you're going to get even more involved the next week, right? Especially since it was basically inside the 10-yard line touchdown to Jalen Polk, right? So it's Hunter Henry as the 1A or 1B. It's nothing lower than that for him in this Drake May-led Patriots offense. So, yeah, I'm good with starting him this week if you need to throw him in there. My tight end start of the week, again, not as exciting, but TJ Hawkinson, the Minnesota Vikings, he is back. I can't even talk about the matchup because the matchup actually isn't that great. Tennessee has allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends this year, but Hawks game last week caught 8 of 9 targets for 72 yards. It's like nothing changed from a fantasy football perspective, and even from an NFL perspective, right? Like, if you're over on YouTube and watching the film, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff that he had been running prior. It's just not as much after the catch. He didn't have enough space to, create an additional 5-10 yards after the catch, except for one of his receptions, but I digress. The clear pecking order in this offense, though, it's Justin Jefferson as the 1A, TJ Hawkinson as the 1B, and then everybody else just kind of falls in line afterwards. So as you're seeing over on YouTube now, you got that big run after the catch for TJ Hawkinson, but this is the norm for the Vikings offense. It's Justin Jefferson, it's TJ Hawkinson, and even in a down matchup, you can just expect Hawk to probably get somewhere between 6 to 8 targets this week, give you 5 to 6 receptions on those targets, and another 50 to 60 yards along the way, which piles up and you get double-digit fantasy points just like that. So I'm a big Hawk fan this week. I think you can play him as a potential top 12 option.
Yeah, anytime you got a tight end who can give you 15 points without a touchdown, it's worth chasing.
Yeah.
Last week, 9 targets on what was his snap percentage? On only 46% of snaps. Yeah, he's back. He's fine. It doesn't matter how often he's out there. They're going to find him. Like he said, he's easily the second target. So fire him up, chase the volume, and he's a good player. So that always helps too. So yeah,
which is the half of it because because this year at the tight end position, half of it is like, if the good players aren't performing, well, then who's the next best good player out there, right? Which has just kind of been how the tight end pecking order has been falling this year. Unfortunately, though, you and I are both going to talk about some interesting guys who people would normally see as higher end tight ends, but actually you should probably be avoiding them this week. So who's your tight end? So we'll quick wrap out here.
Yeah, it's Evan Ingram, and the reason is Mac Jones. That's really what it comes down to. Obviously, he had 8 targets and 6 catches last week for 40 yards, still only 10 fantasy points. But he plays Detroit right now, who's giving up 5 fantasy points a game to tight ends. Bad matchup, plus Mac Jones. Yeah, I want nothing to do with it, even though he's been pretty good for fantasy so far this year.
Yeah, my tight end basically falls into the exact same bush as yours. I should be able to explain why Jake Ferguson is a sit in 3 syllables. Cooper Rush. That's about all you should need to know. But if you really want more convincing, Houston has allowed the fewest fantasy points to the position this year on top of only 247 receiving yards, which is also the fewest in the league. So I am OUT on Jake Ferguson this week. He and Evan Ingram can take a seat on your bench. If you want more start sit help for your lineups this week, you can go over to our Discord. We got nearly 4,400 members over there who are ready to help you out, answer your start sit questions. We've got all sorts of different channels to help you with waiver advice, start sit advice, trade advice as your trade deadline approaches as well. You can join that in the description of the video or YouTube video or the video or audio podcast that you are listening to. Excuse me. Socials as well are down there. FFL is on Twitter. The FFL is on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter. Camlaw FFF for Cameron. Anything you want to add before we sign off here?
I was just looking at that game of the Dallas versus Eagles, and I didn't realize Cooper Rush had 13 completions for 23 attempts for 45 passing yards.
It was brutal.
That's awful. That's terrible.
I told you, Cooper Rush.
All right, that's all I wanted to add. That's unreal.
I can't believe we're renting on a Cooper Rush note, but you know what? That's what it is. Again, make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications. We'll be back next week with even more content for you all. Best of luck in your Week 11 matchups this week. We'll see you next time. Deuces.